I'm going to get to the U.S. activist shot dead in Occupy West Bank, who is an American of Turkish descent, who is like an activist who it turns out was shot dead. I believe I saw the original reporting on this before knowing her background. And now there's more details coming out about it. Anyway, let's continue.
It says an American woman is dead after being shot at a protest. The Associated Press reports witnesses and Palestinian media say the 26-year-old was shot in the head by Israeli troops. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore joins me now from Jerusalem with the latest on that. Marcus, what are you learning so far about this death and how it happened?
Diane, still information is still coming in, very preliminary at this point, but the woman who we were talking about has been identified as 26-year-old Aysenur Ezgi, and she's a dual American Turkish citizen, and she was in the West Bank, has been part of efforts to protect Palestinian farmers from Israeli settlers, and she was reportedly taking part in an anti-settlement march when, according to early reports, IDF soldiers shot her in the head during some type of clashes that were happening at the time. Now, based on a statement that we received from the IDF, it does not appear that she was the target of the IDF soldiers and that perhaps they were targeting someone else when she was hit. Again, these details are still very cloudy and murky at this point, but we know that she was killed. She was rushed to an area hospital where she later died. Now, U.S. officials in a statement offered their condolences and said that they are looking into the circumstances here, while Turkey's Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a statement condemning the shooting, saying in part that Ezgi was murdered by the Netanyahu government and that Israel is trying to intimidate anyone who comes to the aid of Palestinians.
I mean, they did this in Gaza. They do it in the West Bank. I just don't understand it. Like that is precisely what they're doing. How can anyone try and defend this? I actually don't get it. Channel 12 poll, 60% of Israelis think a hostage deal is more important than maintaining IDF control over the Philadelphia corridor. 61% don't think the Netanyahu government is doing enough to bring the hostages home. So this position is no longer just the popular position in the entire world. It's the popular position in Israel. Yeah, they say allegedly. Wild. How has Aysenur Ezgi allegedly been shot dead at the West Bank? She's literally dead. She was shot in the head by the Israeli military and no signs of life. This isn't even saying allegedly Israel did it. It's suggesting that her actual death is alleged.
American woman has allegedly been shot dead in the West Bank during pro-Palestinian demonstrations against settlement expansion.
Here's the other one. American activist shot dead in Occupy West Bank. She was shot in the head. Important context. She was shot in the head by Israeli forces. Israeli media, we did it. U.S. media, who knows? American Turkish activist killed by Israeli forces at the West Bank protest. From the Jerusalem Post, by the way. Middle East crisis. American woman shot and killed at West Bank protests. America, once again, is quite literally outflanking Israeli media on this because the American State Department is still refusing to reckon with the reality. It's crazy how much Western media tries to run defense on utterly indefensible situations. I don't know how to explain it beyond the Israeli military shot an American citizen directly in the head. They've done this before. They do it all the time in Gaza, but they've also done this in the West Bank. They did this to another American legal permanent resident a couple of years ago in 2021, if you recall. A very famous journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh. This is the exact same circumstances. And right now, they're covering it as though oh, well, there's a lot of chaos and they shot him in the shooting. It's no, dude, there wasn't a lot of chaos. Here's a eyewitness. Longtime Israeli activist Jonathan Pollock describes the intentional killing of American Aysenur Ezgi in the West Bank, or Eygi, sorry, in the West Bank. It was quiet. There was nothing to justify the shot. The shot was taken to kill.
Today is no accident. It is the continuation of the killing of 17 of Beta's residents during demonstrations since 2021. It is an intentional killing that is now receiving the light of day, receiving the light of day because she is an American citizen. It was an intentional killing that cannot be justified. My name is Jonathan Pollock. I was there when she was shot. We got to Beta for the weekly demonstration against the settlement there. The army was already present where people pray in protest of the settlement. As soon as the prayer ended, clashes ensued, and the army shot tear gas and live ammunition immediately. We were forced to retreat down towards the village and ended up standing at the outskirts of the built-up area of the village, about 150, 200 meters away from where the soldiers were. We stayed there for about half an hour. Soldiers at some point took over a rooftop that has a view of the entire area, including where we were.
Israel has been granted a right to kill American citizens. The U.S. government will do nothing. I mean, they have done this before. It's not the first time.
It was quiet. There was nothing to justify the shot. The shot was taken to kill. There were 2 shots fired from the rooftop. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference in sound between tear gas, rubber-coated bullets, live ammunition. These were 2 separate shots of live ammunition, shot one after the other. The first one hit a metal object, and then a young man from the village in his thigh. And then I heard another shot. And then I heard people calling my name in English, saying, we need help, come help us. I ran over there about 10 or 15 meters behind me, farther away from the soldiers, into the olive groves. I found her lying on the ground beside the tree, bleeding from her head. I put my hand under her head to try and stop the bleeding. I took her pulse. She had a very weak pulse. We called the ambulance. From there, we evacuated her to the village's medical center, where the doctor came into the ambulance.
I know this isn't about you, but I'm sure this is personal, being a pro-Palestinian Turkish American. Ironically, this is also why you said you'd never travel to Israel or Palestine. You're right. This is why it's always ridiculous when people are like, why won't you go and see it for yourself? Like when, Zionist chatters will be like, oh, there's no problem. There's no problem in the West Bank. What do you mean? There's no problem in Israel. Why don't you go and visit it? It's like, there you go, dude. This is what happens when you go and visit. There is no respect for human life if you are not a part of the crowd that says unconditionally, I am pro-Israel. Even if you are sometimes and you don't look the part, you will still end up receiving racial hatred, animosity in general. Anyway.
And continued into the hospital where they tried to resuscitate her, but failed.
Even Bo Norelli, a total Zionist pro-genocide, went to the West Bank and admitted it was completely fucked up. What's baffling to me is how he can witness that heinous behavior from the Israeli government and not understand what they're doing, the same thing but worse in Gaza. It's because he's trying to triangulate like an appropriate position here. Okay, that's it. I don't believe for even a moment that he is genuine. It's just a liberal Zionist posturing. That's all it is. And I'm sure he will find a way to reason with all of this stuff too. He doesn't care. Stop thinking that there's like an interest in humanity there. Okay, that's just a piece of shit. No other way to explain it. But yeah, it's hard to see this and not feel the State Department has a racial hierarchy for Americans abroad. Yeah, it's true. There is one. Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, they know this already. This is something that I've even talked about in the beginning, early October, when Americans were trying to leave Gaza and the American government wasn't doing enough to try to get them out of Gaza. Turkey is expressing far more anger about the alleged killing of a U.S. Turkish citizen by Israel than the U.S. is. Turkey says, we condemn this murder committed by the Netanyahu government. The U.S. says, we are aware of the tragic death. We offer our deepest condolences. Yeah. I am, of course, reminded of the state-sanctioned murder of American activist Rachel Corrie many years prior. By the way, this war started on October 7. And yet here is how one American rabbi replied to that many years later at this point, by the way. This is Rachel Corrie, who was crushed to death by IDF bulldozers. Israel claimed that it was an accident. It doesn't end there. For years and years, and even now, apparently, Israel and Israeli citizens and Zionists have made fun of Rachel Corrie. They used to make pancakes with her face on it to celebrate her state-sponsored execution. Yeah, Shireen Abu Akleh in 2022, a prominent Palestinian-American journalist reporting for Al Jazeera in Jenin, occupied West Bank. IDF IDF shot her while she was reporting about a raid. She died from the gunshot wound. America did nothing about it. Jacob Flickinger, 2024, killed in Gaza while he and his other volunteer crew were driving on a road that was designated safe humanitarian route by Israel. He was handing out food to people in Gaza. America did nothing about it. Mohammed Kaddour, while he was alongside the hillsides in Biddu, West Bank, an Israeli government opened fire on the car and he was killed. Opened fire on the car he was in and killed the 17-year-old. America did nothing about it. Tawfiq Abdel Jabbar, 2024, 17-year-old Palestinian American from New Orleans, was driving on a highway in the West Bank when he was shot and killed by an IDF soldier. America did nothing about it. There are so many more stories, by the way. This is only a handful. This person was in World Central Kitchen, by the way, for those of you who don't know. You have to understand. People will be like, dual loyalty, dual loyalty. It's like, no, dog, it's single. Loyalty to the almighty dollar and what some at the tippy top assume is the smart decision to make in our undying commitment to Israel. Okay? That's what this is. I want to bring attention to Reddit shadow banning the post about from Our World News after it got traction and people were critical of Israel. Yeah. I mean, Reddit is completely dude. 3 hours ago, U.S. activist shot dead as Israeli military opened fire on West Bank protests. Sorry, this post has been removed by the moderators of r/World News. American activist shot dead in Occupy West Bank like it was a random stray. Here's how the New York Times covered the story, by the way. The New York Times is manufacturing consent for the Israel's killing of American activist Aysenur Ezgi. The only violence at these demonstrations is from settlers who attack and harass activists with impunity. Miss Eygi, who lived in Seattle, had recently arrived in Israel as a part of a group of international activists who demonstrated in solidarity with Palestinians in the Occupy West Bank. On Friday, she joined the rally in Beta, where residents have been protesting for years, sometimes violently, against the settler outpost on lands claimed by the village. The settler outpost is illegal, and the residents are not protesting violently. But you have to write that if you want to be like, that's why there was IDF presence there. That's why the IDF reacted in the way that they did. The Israeli government had recently said it would retroactively approve the outpost. It is so incredibly openly indefensible. And it's getting to a point where even Israeli citizens who have their own personal motivations, not because they care about the humanity of Gazans that are being slaughtered, but their own personal understandable motivations to like get the hostages back, are now criticizing the Israeli government, whereas the American State Department is straight up running defense, not for Israel as a government, as an entity in and of itself, but for Benjamin Netanyahu directly, while also the American media is doing the same because they have only one way of approaching the subject matter, which is just operate like stenographers for the State Department. I hope that much is glaringly obvious. This was an American citizen. Why doesn't the American State Department throw Netanyahu under the bus to secure Israel? They're just not. That's it. I don't know what the personal motivations are at this point, but they're not. What they're doing is running cover and running defense. Here is DJ Judd from CNN. In Michigan, Biden says he's spoken to the national security team about the death of American activist Aysenur Ezgi in the West Bank. I need more information. That's why I was late coming down, because I was on the phone talking to my team, but I'll have more information later. The reason why they're doing this is because they're running the playbook of push it past the point of like media interest. They did a similar thing with the World Central Kitchen bombings. A little bit of repercussions came for Israel, like light, minor slap on the wrist. Israel literally said, oops, we shot her in the head, and actively opened fire on a protest. And Blinken is out here being like, but we don't know what actually happened. School. Yeah, what they're doing is playing block and push. That is what they're doing. IDF, we did open fire in that area, and now we're hearing that an American is dead. Paragraph later, Blinken, first things first, let's find out what happened. According to the IDF, during operations near the town in Beta, close to Nablus, troops opened fire at a main instigator who was hurling stones at the forces and had posed a threat. A claim that a foreign citizen was killed in a gunfire in the area is being investigated. The details of the incident and the circumstances of her being hit are under investigation. If I know anything about Israel, they will, one, either falsely continue to smear this person and claim she was an instigator, claim she was a threat, and therefore they had no other choice but to shoot her in the head. Or they will then say, oh, it was actually a Palestinian that shot her, which is precisely the lie they told with Shireen Abu Akleh, who was wearing full press gear and also a helmet, and an Israeli sniper rifle shot her in the neck in front of cameras. She's a member of the press. She was an American citizen. They lied and said it was Palestinians that shot and killed her. And they tried to do the same song and dance that they always do when there is at least a little bit of Western media attention on one of their unlawful executions. There are thousands of unlawful executions. It's the ones that the Western world cares about that they at least are asked to, defend, right? And once like a story becomes a story in the Western world, then they come out with the excuses possible and just openly lie. All of this plays a role in icing out the story, okay? Taking it away from public attention, because everybody understands that like the media cycle and the interest cycle is short. So all you need to do is like sit back for at least a week and push the story back at least a week before less and less people give a shit about it. The American government plays a role where they go, oh, we just got to wait for Israel's investigation. Israel conducts its own internal investigation while simultaneously releasing false evidence over and over again, claiming that the Palestinians must have done it. All the while, the defenders, bots, and also humans behaving like NPCs alike will come into any outlet that is covering the story with truth and demanding answers and will tell you you're wrong and an anti-Semite and that you're actually an Islamist fundamentalist. We know this has happened a million times since October 7. It's happened here many, many times over. By the time the actual truth is completely clear, there will be like a New York Times visual analysis unit coverage on the matter a month later that immediately clarifies and shows what the actual truth is, that without a doubt, it was an Israeli sniper that shot this person in the head. At that point, it's a month too late. It's a month too late. And in certain instances, like with Hind Rajab, the American government is still collecting information, still waiting for Israel to conduct its internal investigations. It's been 8 months.
Perhaps this is a good follow-up here. It's been 184 days now since Israeli forces killed Hind Rajab. Has the Biden-Harris administration followed up on this alleged lie by the Israeli government?
I don't have any specifics to read out as it relates to this conversation. I'm happy to check if there have been any additional updates, but to my understanding, this investigation is still ongoing, and I will leave it to them to speak to the details of it.
So,
since an Israeli tank slaughtered Hind Rajab and her entire family, and also the ambulance that came that was in the deconfliction zone that had actually communicated with the IDF to go and retrieve Hind Rajab. Yeah, this is what I was operating off of when I said I know what Israel is going to do. It's not because I have some future foresight. I don't have future vision. I just know what they're going to do because I know what they've done in the past in a high profile incident like this. First, they will deny killing her. Turns out they did, like everyone said. The Biden administration will call it an accident, and then there will be no accountability or justice. Israeli leaders, Al Jazeera journalists likely killed by Palestinian gunfire. They were shooting directly at the journalists. New evidence suggests Shireen Abu Akleh was killed in targeted attack by Israeli forces. U.S. concludes unintentional Israeli fire likely killed American journalists. Israeli military admits Shireen Abu Akleh likely killed by Israeli fire, but won't charge soldiers. Despite this and the massive list of war crimes Israel has committed over the last 11 months, the Biden admin is still calling for Israel to investigate itself for killing another American, Aysenur Ezgi Eygi, and the Western media is still acting as a stenographer for the Israeli government. Yeah, it is genuinely frustrating to just know what is happening, like to see the truth that many people around the world see, by the way. It's not just you in this chat. Many Americans see this truth. Many people in the global south have known what this is. People outside of the sphere of influence of the United States of America have seen this and have recognized this for generations at this point. Okay. And you recognize it, you see it, your eyes are open to this reality. And yet those in positions of power just sit around and act like that's not going on at all. That's just not a real thing, that like there's nothing we can do, or they just try a litany of different ways of trying to defend this action, this behavior that is truly repugnant, abhorrent. I don't know. This is why you have to keep protesting. This is why you can't let up. You can't succumb to nihilism, the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness that you have in your heart when you recognize the truly inhumane actions of America's most important ally. It shouldn't stop you, because in spite of all of this bloodshed, there are definitely real differences that are happening all around us. We're inching towards the appropriate action inevitably being taken. You just can't give up. Palestinians don't have an opportunity to give up. They just can't go anywhere. They can't give up at all because they just have to live through it. You know, you should remember their resilience and continue as well. This is Anthony Blinken, the demon, and how he responded to the question, what's the message to Americans concerning providing aid to a country killing U.S. citizens?
Secretary, we've seen these reports this morning about the killing of an American in the West Bank. Could you tell us a little bit about what you know about the killing of that American, Aysenur Ezgi? What's your message for Americans who are concerned that you are providing military aid to a country that is killing U.S. citizens? And is there ever a point at which the killing of Americans in that region could lead to a change in U.S. policy of weapons provision?
Michael, thank you. First, I just want to extend my deepest condolences of the United States government to the family of Aysenur Ezgi Eygi. We deplore this tragic loss. Now, the most important thing to do is to gather the facts, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. And we are intensely focused on getting those facts. And any actions that we take are driven by the facts. So first things...
Like, no condemnation. Did he say this about, like, Hamas potentially executing the American hostages when Israel was like, yeah, we're not going to do the ceasefire. We're going to try to, like, extract them militarily? Was there an investigation there? Was it simply just like, oh, man, I'm offering my condolences, you know, a skill issue type? Why is it that some Americans have a higher priority than others? Like, what the are you doing?
First, let's find out exactly what happened, and we will draw the necessary conclusions, consequences from that. As you've heard me say many times before, I have no higher priority than the safety and protection of American citizens around the world, wherever they are. Something I take with the utmost seriousness. So, if we have more info, we'll share it, we'll make it available, and as necessary, we'll act on it.
If necessary, we'll act on it. Here's Senator Van Hollen. The United States cannot just turn a blind eye to the killing of American citizens. If the Netanyahu government will not pursue justice for Americans, the U.S. Department of Justice must. No, I don't. By the way, the chat are asking that Anthony Blinken is out if Kamala Harris wins, and he will not continue into another Democratic administration in the event of a Kamala Harris win in November, saying that he looks forward to having a lot more time with his kids very soon. No, this does not spell anything remotely positive for me. I don't care. You want to know why I don't care? Because what I need to hear from Kamala Harris is a direct separation from the Biden admin for her own personal electoral benefit. You need to understand that. That is the bare minimum. I need to hear a lot more than that. But if she's not even making these decisions that will benefit her, then why the is my expectation that she'll put a person there that is like somehow a one-stater or some shit, you know? That's a silly thing to hold on to. Anthony Blinken should be in prison, by the way. If there was any sort of real rule of law, he would be. A lot more people would go to jail, not just him. The American president, American leadership, journalists. Target Israel and we will target you. ICC prosecutor says the world leaders threatened him over Israel arrest warrants. The International Criminal Court judges have yet to issue warrants for the Israeli prime minister and defense minister 4 months after the prosecutor Karim Khan requested them. Karim Khan told the BBC, several leaders and others told me and advised me and cautioned me. In May, Khan said there were reasonable grounds to believe that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant had committed war crimes during the Israeli assault on Gaza that has killed over 40,000 Palestinians, the majority women and children. Yeah, they're using every amount of like backdoor pressure they possibly can, including directly threatening the people that are trying to move the needle on the international organs of justice. I still remain hopeful because of the glaringly obvious violations and the additional pressure that this will put, hopefully, on Western nations and their uncommitted support to Israel. But the situation currently is basically if the Nazis align with the United States of America, okay? That's what it is. Like if during World War II, the Nazis were able to secure an allegiance, like the business plot went through, FDR assassinated, you got a Chamber of Commerce guy up there, Nazis align with the United States of America, history would be written very differently because that's what's going on right now. You have a fascist government doing their own version, doing their own smaller, more focused style of a slower burn Holocaust, while simultaneously the American government is offering unconditional support. And the American government, of course, is a significantly more dominant force now, post-World War II, than it was before World War II. And there's no counterbalance or no counterweight to fight against it.